I bet you've heard through the grapevine about something in your lifetime that may or may not have been true. You might have lived a full life of inner city blues that you couldn't understand, or maybe even experienced the time of being in love with someone who just wasn't ready to prompt you to keep your love waiting for them when they were. Whatever the case may be, you're definitely not alone. Even your biggest idols feel the same emotions and experience the same things you have already experienced already. Even all the awards, sold out tours, money, and admiration doesn't separate them from being human. And ladies and gentlemen, my idol Marvin Gaye is no different. Marvin Pentz Gaye was born in Washington, D.C. on April 2nd, 1939. He was raised by a strict father known as Reverend Marvin Gaye Sr., along with his mother, Alberta Gaye. The second of 3 children, he had a difficult upbringing, as his father would beat him and torment him on a daily basis. He was raised in the public housing projects known as Fairfax Apartments, which were often overcrowded and extremely small. At the age of 3, Marvin began singing in the church of which his father was already an ordained minister of, becoming a soloist in the choir. For me, I began singing at the age of 5 in elementary school, in the elementary school choir. You know, I became a soloist. Along with him, I was maybe a soloist from maybe kindergarten up until 2nd grade. He chose music as an escape from the reality around him, which was full of torment and abusive conditions. Granted, the neighborhood that I grew up in, I may not have grown up in a broken home, but I grew up in a neighborhood that surrounded my home, that was full of the influences, the drugs, the gangs, all sorts of things that could have influenced me and could have trapped me into that circle. He enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, graduating from high school, but was discharged early for his failure to follow basic rules and policies. Afterwards, he then began singing in various doo-wop groups around his neighborhood, along with joining a local attraction who were first known as the Rainbows, but then became known as the Moonglows. As a freshman in high school, I began recording with a group called GDS, which stood for Grind Don't Stop. And all of my friends were pretty much rappers at that time. I was the only singer that was a part of the group. By the time I was able to join, however, their popularity had pretty much panned, so that prompted me to break out on my own and record as a solo artist. His talent for writing music, as well as his impressive vocal range, caught the ear of Motown impresario Berry Gordy Jr., who eventually signed him in 1961. I was signed independently to what was then called More Than Music Entertainment, which was now called Real Entertainment, back in 2014. My talent for songwriting and composing at a fast rate caught the eye of many other artists who were working with me at the same time. Working as a session drummer for the likes of label mate Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, he met the daughter of Berry Gordy Jr., Anna Gordy, of whom he would eventually marry within the same year of his signing. I first began singing and writing hooks for various artists who I was working with and was signed to the same label as me. Even though he struggled to find his voice as a solo artist, he would eventually spawn early hits from Motown such as Stubborn Kind of Fella and Ain't That Peculiar. For me, I earned my first actual hit with the release of my song No Love, a collaboration with my brother known as Alex Ross. I've also earned several other hits within that time period as well. Marvin began writing and composing duets with several different female singers, such as Mary Wells and Kim Weston, recording the more memorable hits Once Upon a Time and What's the Matter with You Baby, and It Takes Two respectively. His duets with the likes of Tammy Terrell, however, cemented his legacy as a duet powerhouse, spawning the chart-topping hits Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Your Precious Love, and You're All I Need to Get By. Well, for me, I recorded a duet with my female friend known as Zaria J. It was a song called You, and I released it on SoundCloud. And pretty much everybody in high school heard the song, and they were mind blown. They really loved the song. Compliments me every day, you know. However, the collapse on stage during a show in Virginia, the diagnosis of a brain tumor, and the death of Tammy on March 16, 1970 led to Marvin being secluded away from the public. He resurfaced with the release of his critically acclaimed LP, What's Going On, released on May 21st, 1971. The album marked a change for Marvin as he had gained total control and direction over his own projects from that point on. As for me, I released my debut mixtape called Event. Some of you may have heard it, some of you may not have heard it. But it was inspired by the themes of the LP, specifically because I went through a period of seclusion from reality and pretty much everyone around me, as I had dealt with a period of depression and anxiety. And to this day, I still deal with it, but it isn't as lenient on my mind as it was before. But it pretty much represented events that happened, unimaginable events that happened that some of you may not or may believe that happened in my lifetime. The project allowed me to vent out my emotions in a more elaborate way for everybody to hear, pretty much for everyone to feel what I was going through at that time. His continued success with the LP initially baffled Berry Gordy, but he finally understood Marvin's reasoning behind why he chose this direction. This LP also marked a turning point for other artists who were also signed to Motown, as well as other artists who weren't signed to Motown, such as Stevie Wonder, who was signed to Motown, but he also began to take full control over the direction of his music, as well as writing and composing his own. Every song on my project from the past, as well as projects in the future, have also had only my involvement and will continue to have my involvement in the future. And I've also been writing and composing my own music for the last several years, and I will continue to do that. His success continued with the release of his most commercially successful effort to date, Let's Get It On, although its sound and themes were panned by critics for its sexually explicit content, as well as the themes of lust and longing, as well as keeping the themes of social injustice and staying woke, as we like to say. While his success continued, his personal life started to deteriorate, with the marriage to his wife Anna Gordy failing and leading to divorce in 1975, inevitably delaying the release of his next LP. This would lead to him publicly displaying the details of his divorce and marriage in the LP that followed, Here My Dear, which while successful was also controversial in nature. His tailspin out of control continued, as did his drug addiction and failure to pay taxes to the IRS, which ultimately led him to flee the country to Europe. While there, he would record what would in turn be the final record of his career, albeit the most successful, Midnight Love, immediately signed to Columbia Records in 1982. However, his erratic behavior and heavy drug use became a major concern. While his success and legacy weren't in question, his psyche definitely was, with the drug use and financial issues mounting on top of him. In 1983, his dependence on cocaine and personal demons forced him back into the U.S., where he moved back in with his parents in order to stay away from the deadly drug. This move, however, increased his depression, while he threatened suicide on several occasions and clashed bitterly with his own father. I would argue with my mother's boyfriends growing up as a little kid, because they would always try to tell me what to do as if they were my father, and I didn't really like that. And sometimes she would take their side on it because I was younger and they were older, and of course that was the first sign of me becoming depressed and me having anxiety issues, because I got so sick and tired of my mother taking their side over me, over her own son. But then I remember back then that everybody was so young back then that we didn't really have the mindset that we have now, it's even her. Everything pretty much culminated on the afternoon of April 1st, 1984, when, after a very heated argument, Marvin Gaye Sr. shot and killed his own son in a fit of rage. Throughout his lifetime, Marvin Gaye endured a number of trials and tribulations that ultimately led to his death. However, his impact on the music industry was monumental, and his legacy kept his spirit alive for decades. His struggles to maintain a sense of sanity and moral standards would allow me to overcome my battles with depression and anxiety growing up as a youth in the neighborhood, deprived of the things I could only dream of. He inspired me to love what I have and be happy with myself as a man, regardless of not having a father in my life. He would also inspire me to live my life to the fullest extent that I could. If it's one last thing that Marvin Gaye Jr. taught me, it was this: love yours even though no one else will.